So I watched Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho for the first time recently. I know, let that sink in. That's kind of embarrassing for someone who likes movies as much as I do and has seen so many movies. But I'm someone who really hasn't seen as many classic movies as I should. Like, I've never seen Casablanca, I've never seen Pulp Fiction, stuff like that. And so I'm trying slowly to get there, but they just tend not to be my cup of tea. Psycho overall, I wasn't that big of a fan of. I liked it, don't get me wrong, but I felt like a lot of the pacing was just too slow for what I'm used to. However, while I was watching, I was really caught off guard by how many similarities there were to the movie Barbarian, which is a movie that I've seen twice since it came out. And by the way, if you are interested, I believe it is free on HBO Max right now if you have an HBO Max subscription. And I highly recommend it. It is by far the best horror movie I saw in 2022. And it is up there definitely with the best movie I saw in 2022. So the first thing that kind of cued me in was this scene where the main character and the main male character are having a discussion. But I'll get to that in a moment. As I started watching, I started realizing that these similarities weren't just accidental similarities, nor were they like plagiarism. I think that the director of Barbarian very intentionally took ideas from Psycho and was heavily influenced while subverting the idea. So, from here on out, I will be going into spoilers for Barbarian, just because it's kind of impossible for me not to in this video. So if you haven't seen either Psycho or Barbarian and you plan to, and spoilers are going to ruin your experience, which I kind of feel like they will, then I would go ahead and click off now and then come back to this video when you've seen it. So the first similarity is the title. They both have one-word titles, usually describing a man. So Psycho, based on Oxford Language Dictionary, it defines it as an unstable and aggressive person. And Barbarian is defined as an uncultured or brutish person. Keep in mind how similar those definitions are. Unstable versus uncultured, aggressive versus brutish person. They're literally formatted the exact same way, and typically when we think of a psycho or a barbarian, our minds do typically go to men. So just based off the title alone, subconsciously we might already be linking the two, because even if you haven't seen Psycho, like me, up till recently, it is such a cultural phenomenon that, you know, anything resembling, like if we see a shower, we're going to think of Psycho. That's just kind of how ingrained it is in our culture. So to begin with, the main thing that kind of had little alarm bells going off in my head is the fact that the girl, the main character, stops at a hotel/Airbnb, in the case of Barbarian, in a deserted part of town due to financial reasons. In Psycho, she's fleeing a job that she's stolen money from, and in Barbarian, she is applying for a job. Both of these, hotels or quasi-hotels are in a part of town that there's really no one around for quite a bit. You can't just run outside and yell for help. No one's going to hear you. And it's in kind of like a rickety part of town that used to be thriving but is no longer. There, they meet a guy who is the only person that they see in that area, and he's charming, and he's got somewhat of like a soft boy exterior, but there's some somewhat scary implications due to the fact that the main character is a woman alone in a deserted part of town that she's unfamiliar with. So as nice as these guys seem, there is kind of this sinister undertone that something could go wrong very easily. And both of these women kind of display nonverbal cues to already having this kind of in mind, though they do kind of open themselves up because they don't want to just be like, extremely rude to these men that could have completely innocent intentions. As they interact with him, they slowly start to warm up, and there's a moment where they're sitting, in chairs by a table and flirting. They're offered food, they start to loosen up a bit, and there's kind of this undercurrent of maybe something could happen between them. In Psycho, Norman Bates turns out to be the killer, but in Barbarian, they subvert that. So Bill Skarsgård's character, Keith, we are kind of on the edge of our seat, probably subconsciously because of all the Psycho similarities. I'm thinking that he will be the killer just like Norman was, and then we get kind of a twist that it's not him. And I want to note, with the subversion comes the risk of implying that women have no need to be scared or intimidated by men. But the director anticipates this and adds in Justin Long's character, who represents what we kind of feared Keith to be initially. So Justin Long's character served to show that, yes, Keith may be a really sweet guy, but there are characters like Long's who are creepy and rapey and stuff like that. And so the director, through that character, is letting us know that he is not taking some sort of stance that way. Both movies have a matriarchal, aka mother figure, as the central villain. However, they're both puppeteered by a man. Norma Bates' likeness is used by her son Norman during the killings. And Mother, in Barbarian, was made a monster through the cruelty and inbreeding of the serial killer rapist father figure. Ignoring Bates Motel and any sort of sequel or spin-off of Psycho, we don't really get any confirmation that Norma was a character that was inherently bad, or anything worse than just like kind of a strict mother. So just like Mother in Barbarian, they're characters that we have no evidence that they would have been evil, if not in some way puppeteered or pushed by a male figure. Further linking Mother to Norma is the fact that she's played by a male actor. Similar to how Norman dressed up as his mother, Norma, Mother is portrayed by a male actor in prosthetic makeup. This only serves to emphasize the male puppeteering aspect. So these are the main links I found between Psycho and Barbarian, but I'm sure that there are much more. It's very possible that there are like Easter eggs. It's possible that the name Bates is somewhere in Barbarian or something and I missed it. So let me know in the comments below if you noticed anything that I missed, especially if you're going and watching it or rewatching it after this video. Keep in mind for those things, please, because this is something that I'm actually very interested in and may expand if I get more. And as always, thanks for watching.